We're seeing automakers pour billions of dollars into building their own proprietary EV charging networks. Now, on the surface, this move is a bit of a head-scratcher. Selling electricity is a notoriously tough, low-margin business, so why are car companies all of a sudden trying to act like utility companies? Well, the answer isn't about selling power, it's about control, it's about building a competitive moat, and it's about positioning for a multi-trillion-dollar energy market of the future.
So let's get right to the core thesis of our analysis. This is not a direct play for profit from charging fees. That's a common misconception. Instead, building these networks is a strategic necessity, and it's really driven by 4 key objectives. First, to finally get a handle on the user experience and put an end to charging anxiety. Second, to build a sticky brand ecosystem that creates real customer loyalty. Third, to enable the kind of deep technology integration that gives them a genuine competitive edge. And finally, to unlock a much larger prize, the future of energy services.
All right, here's our roadmap for this analysis. We'll start with the strategic imperative. Then we'll reframe the economics, look at the competitive structure of the market, compare the different strategies we're seeing, and finally, look at the ultimate prize, the energy endgame.
Okay, let's dive right into that primary driver. For years, the big conversation around EVs was all about range anxiety, the fear of your battery dying mid-trip. But that's largely been solved. The real bottleneck today, the new fear, is charging anxiety. The worry that when you finally find a charger, it won't actually work.
And this isn't just a feeling. The data on this is pretty stark. A 2024 study from J.D. Power found that nearly 1 in 5, 19%, of all attempts to use a public charger end in failure. Just think about that. This level of unreliability completely undermines the value proposition of going electric, especially when you stack it up against the simple, dependable experience of filling up a car with gas.
And you might assume the problem is user error, but it's not. The vast majority of these failures, a staggering 61%, are because the charger itself is broken or just offline. This points to a fundamental quality control issue that has really plagued third-party operators.
And this is where the performance gap just becomes undeniable. You look at Tesla's supercharger network, where they control the entire stack from the vehicle to the plug, and they boast an uptime of over 99%. Compare that to third-party networks, where failure rates can climb as high as 20 or even 30%. This chasm in reliability is precisely why other automakers now feel they have no choice but to take control of the experience themselves.
And look, this isn't just our interpretation. Industry leaders are saying it out loud. Lee Bin, the founder of NIO, has explicitly called their network the brand's moat. That's a powerful term. He sees it as a structural barrier designed to defend the business and lock in customer loyalty.
The strategic logic here follows a very clear path. The entire car business is shifting away from one-time hardware sales toward recurring revenue from software and services. But to sell those services, you need regular interaction with the customer after the initial sale. So what's the most frequent, most critical interaction for an EV owner? It's charging. If you control that touchpoint, you control the gateway to an entire ecosystem of future revenue.
It also goes beyond the customer experience. Owning the infrastructure is often a technical necessity. To really get the maximum performance out of advanced 800-volt fast charging, you need perfect software synergy between the car and the charger. That tight integration is what enables features like Tesla's automatic battery preheating, which can cut charging times by 25%. It also unlocks entirely new business models, like NIO's battery as a service, which is literally impossible without that end-to-end control.
But this clear strategic imperative runs headfirst into a brutal economic reality. Building these networks is incredibly expensive. This brings us to the second part of our analysis, where we have to completely reframe the financial logic.
Just consider the cost. The data shows that the average total project cost for a single NEVI-compliant fast charging station in the US is nearly $1 million. To be precise, $915,000, and that figure includes everything: the hardware, the construction, the critical grid upgrades. It's a massive capital barrier. And that number leads us to the central economic question. How can an automaker possibly justify this kind of capital-intensive, low-margin investment that falls so far outside its core business of manufacturing vehicles?
Well, the answer requires you to reclassify the asset. The charging network is not meant to be a standalone profit center. The right way to view it is as a classic loss leader. It's a strategic investment designed to do one thing: drive sales of the company's primary high-margin product, which is the car itself. So if you were to calculate the ROI the conventional way, just taking charging revenue, subtracting costs, and dividing by that huge investment, you'd be using the wrong model. This approach measures the network in a vacuum and, frankly, makes it look like a terrible business.
The correct model, from the automaker's perspective, is much more comprehensive. The numerator has to include the incremental profit from car sales that are made because the network exists. Then you add in the future, high-margin service revenue it enables. In this framework, the network stops being a separate business and becomes what it truly is, a customer acquisition cost that supports the core business.
Now, once you understand that economic framework, it becomes much clearer where automakers fit into the broader market. The key thing to realize is that they aren't just competing with companies like Electrify America. They're playing a completely different game.
The market really has three main types of players. And to understand it, just focus on that first row, the primary goal. For a professional operator, a CPO, the goal is simple: maximize revenue by selling electricity. But for an automaker, the goal is to sell more cars and control the user's experience. That single distinction changes everything. It means the automaker can justify a heavy asset model to build brand loyalty, while the CPO has to chase economies of scale. The takeaway is that an automaker's advantage isn't in selling electrons. It's in creating a seamless experience that sells vehicles. And even within that group of automakers, we're seeing very different approaches emerge. They're all trying to reach the same destination, selling more cars, but they're taking different paths to get there.
You really see a full spectrum of strategies. On one end, you have the ultimate builders. Think Tesla, the pioneer who literally set the industry standard, and NIO, the innovator with its battery swap model. Li Auto and XPeng are also in this aggressive build camp. Then you have the enablers, like Huawei, who provide the cutting-edge charging technology to partners. And finally, at the other end, you have the pragmatic collaborators, like BYD and Xiaomi, who are leveraging partnerships to get coverage without taking on the massive capital investment themselves. Each strategy is a calculated bet on what will work best for their brand and market.
And this brings us to the final and most forward-looking piece of the puzzle. These massive investments aren't just about selling more cars today. They're about securing a critical strategic position in the energy markets of tomorrow.
The key technology to understand here is vehicle-to-grid, or V2G. This technology allows an electric vehicle not only to pull power from the grid, but to send it back. In effect, it turns millions of parked cars into a massive, distributed battery that can be used to help stabilize the entire power system.
And what is the crucial link for all of this? The charging station. It is the physical and digital gateway that connects millions of mobile batteries, the cars, to the grid. By controlling this infrastructure, an automaker controls the interface to a future multi-trillion-dollar market for energy services.
This brings us full circle to the ultimate answer. This investment isn't about selling electricity. It's about owning the gateway to the future of energy. And that leaves us with one final fundamental question. Are we witnessing the transformation of automakers into the next generation of energy companies? The answer to that won't just define the future of mobility. It could reshape our entire energy grid.